Hey Total War fans, Dan Otto with Dan Plays here. Today I'm going to be giving you a comprehensive guide of how to use your gun units in various formations in battle. For our demonstration here, we're going to be using the Empire units, and our first showing is going to be 4 steam tanks and 2 tanky heroes in Carl Franzia here at the front. So we have 2 Hellblaster volley guns, and the rest of our units are going to be handgunners. So they're in more or less a line, and the idea here is that we're going to let the enemy blob up on our tankier units and take pot shots at them from either the flanks or right where they're standing.
State troops ready.
So we are going to let Chaos march to us. Now, an important thing to note here with the Hellblaster volley guns, as they're shooting, they're actually going to shoot through the units that they hit first. So if the units get knocked down or killed in the front, the units behind them are still going to take damage. So we want to make sure that we're shooting at enemies that have units behind them if we're not focusing down either a lord or a monster. So obviously thinning their middle is going to help too, especially if we had a more traditional army build. That would help us push through their middle first. Granted, these are all Chaos Warriors, so they're shielded from the front and they have high armor. But our units really aren't going to do much damage to them in melee, so our goal here is to kill them from range. They don't have armor piercing, so our steam tank's going to be able to blob them up very nicely. If they had great weapons or halberds, this would be a different story. I'm going to move Carl Franzia in to try and keep them out right in gun range.
What do you bid? Yes, sir.
As they get closer, I'm going to use my steam tanks to actively blob them up. The further they are from our lines, the better.
What do you bid?
It's going to cause their units to create blobs far away and well out of the way of our gun lines.
Steady, man.
Alright, so we do have a unit of Chaos Warriors breaking through.
Shoot them.
Looks like 2 of them are coming,
Fire! Fire!
as well as a couple more on our right flank.
State troops ready. In range. For Heldenhammer.
We're going to try and move our Empire Captain over to intercept. We are going to start pulling back our handgunners. We don't want them in melee, but if they do get bogged down, like that unit there, they're going to have to stay. We'll switch them to guard mode. That's going to let some of the units still fire their rifles while the rest are engaged in melee.
Sir, we obey.
Now that we pulled our handgunners back, we're going to get some good rear shots on those Chaos Warriors.
Show us the foe.
And any shots from the rear are going to give a bonus to armor penetration, which the handgunners already have a substantial amount of. And it's going to ignore their shields entirely.
Withdraw. To battle. Crew to cannons. Don't miss fire.
But as our right flank starts to fall, we're going to start moving some of those handgunners over there to take shots at them. And our handgunners right here are actually going to do a perfectly good job of holding the line. A lot of those Chaos Warriors actually took enough damage that they're going to be able to stand there and beat them. Now, it's not ideal, but at the same time, it's going to give us time to reposition our other forces. So as you can see, the general idea is to create kill boxes. Areas where enemy units are inside of them, and we have guns that are able to take shots unadulterated the entire time. But these routed handgunners are still going to be able to turn back around and fire, and from where they are, they're actually probably going to do some decent damage right into their backs.
We are Sigmar's heirs.
Carl Franzia is running away.
We are Sigmar's heirs.
That's no surprise, he was blobbed up very heavily.
Take your targets.
We got to make sure that we focus fire their lord.
State troops ready.
Now, a lord unit typically will be standing a bit taller than any others, so even if you have your own units in there, they should be able to focus fire them down just like a monster. Alright, so there you have our first formation. So here's our end screen. Pretty average kills across the board. Our Hellblaster volley guns really carried the battle there. Now I'm going to show you Chevron formation. So this is where we take our halberd halberdiers and
For Heldenhammer!
put them in Chevron, just like the upgrade sign on your units, and then put a unit of handgunners at the bottom of each. So those units of handgunners that are next to or underneath their units of halberdiers are actually going to crossfire, so creating an X. So in theory, what that's going to allow is when they engage the enemy units, they should have their backs or their sides exposed to our handgunners, who will then be able to take shots at the enemy units, gaining that bonus to armor penetration and damage. So we have our Hell Blasters put in between some of the squares. That should help to maximize our damage output. We could blob them up right there, but instead I'm electing to put my Lords and Heroes in the holes without them, kind of keep the morale up and keep those units pinned. I do have one rogue unit of Halberdiers out to the outside, hopefully to catch any of their units that are trying to flank around to get to my handguns. Now again, you want to focus fire your Hellblaster volley guns on any units with units behind them. That extra kill penetration will lead to extra kills. So Hellblasters are slightly elevated, so they can kind of shoot over your own units. I'll show you later that you can't just run in front of them. Rarely, they will just shoot straight through your own units. You want to try to avoid that. That'll be in a later battle.
To me, man!
So here our goal is going to be to keep our Chevron formation pretty tight and have our handgunners do all of the work. Chaos Warriors are going to have a much better charge bonus than our Halberdiers are, and I'd rather them stay still and maintain formation anyways. So as you can see, we have a solid stream of fire coming out of every unit of handgunners right now. If all goes well, they will continue firing as consistently after the battle lines are met.
Handgunners! Halberdiers! Moving now!
So we're going to move that unit of Halberdiers to not take that direct side charge, and that should still leave a good avenue of fire for our handgunners.
I will not stand
So here in the middle is pretty ideal. If you look at those two units of handgunners that are just shooting straight into the backs of the enemy units, that's what we're aiming for all the time. It's 1, 2, and 3, 4 that have very good firing angles right now. Sometimes you do need to select the units and have them, like right here,
Handgunners!
just focus on a certain unit.
For the twin-tailed comet! Hellblaster! Ready for war! Crew to cannons! Ready to fire! Formation, march!
Alright, so Carl Franzia runs yet again.
By Ulrich's Wrath! Handgunners! Hellblaster! We are Sigmar's heirs! Taking position!
I'm going to move back some of my handgunners to focus fire their Lord.
For the Emperor! Shields up!
I'm going to switch those units of handgunners to guard mode so they'll still fire, while everyone else focuses that Lord down.
Heldenhammer! Hellblaster volley gun!
Now occasionally your units will have an open avenue of fire and not shoot. Sometimes that's fatigue related. Other times, just click on a unit like here, and they should resume fire.
Soldiers of the Empire!
Fire at will won't have them volley fire as much, so you want to make sure you're doing that manually.
Awaiting orders! Missiles will fly! For the Empire!
Get Franzia back into the fight.
By Ulrich's Wrath! My subjects call.
Now, as you can see kind of around the screen, some of our units aren't getting, even though they look like they have a great firing line, they're not getting great shots. So we're going to have to keep moving our handgunners just a bit to get the most out of them. And right now, we're just going to kite that Lord. We don't want to lose that unit of handgunners. And in the open, he will go down very quickly. It is a good idea to focus him before he meets the battle lines as well, if you get clear shots off at him. I just didn't want the Chaos Warriors to rout too quickly to get a better idea.
Finding range, sir. Handgunners! For Heldenhammer! Handgunners! Our weapons are yours!
So you do want to make sure you keep some fire on the routing units. Yeah, they're not doing any damage to you right now, but if you can keep their morale low, it'll keep them from getting back into the fight.
Ready for war!
You seem to have better firing lanes for most of our units now. I'm going to move this unit of handgunners to try and get those flank shots.
By Ulrich's wrath!
I'm going to go more into flanking in the next video.
Hellblaster! Take position! Spotters the target! All ranks, fire! No lingering!
So our unit of handgunners we moved to flank over there is now pinned down. They will not fare well against Chaos Warriors that are nearly at full health.
Ready for war! Understood! For the Emperor!
This is a little counterintuitive, but I'm going to move my unit of halberdiers to meet them. They are going to block some of our firing lines.
Yes, sir. Sigma calls. Take the ground.
So as we've been overloaded on one flank now, we're going to start trying to kite some of their units and focus on some of their low health units over here.
We are Sigma's heirs.
So now it's not just a matter of keeping them out of the fight, it's that we might not win the fight if we let them get some hits on our handgunners. So the morale is low, it shouldn't take them long to break. Especially with a crossfire like that, one of the units would end up getting flanking shots.
Halberdiers! Handgunners! Quick march! Finding range, sir! Handgunners! To
So by pulling
battle!
those units back and having another couple create firing lines,
Yes, sir.
we should be able to make a kill box just by kiting the enemy.
Cannons! For the twin-tailed comet! Handgunners!
They're not getting out of there, they can stay. Alright, so our front line is gone. At this point, we're just hoping to create a morale break by killing units. These units here are getting straight rear shots into the enemy. We do luckily have a unit of halberdiers that regrouped
Ready!
out there outside the fight.
Fire! 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 To battle! Handgunners!
And they're gone again.
We are Sigma.
But the Chaos Warriors are going to chase them, which will give us some rear shots. They're trying to regroup now.
Loaded, sir. Hellblaster volley gun.
The Hellblaster is great against single units, especially high armor ones. But they're going to do a substantial amount of damage to them. So we're going to try and let these Chaos Warriors chase our units. Now, as you can see, our
Moving now.
unit of handgunners is firing into their right side, which does have the shield. But as they start getting up a little bit further, those rear hits.
For Heldenhammer. Conditions acceptable. March as one. Sigma preserve us.
Oh, Franzia is long gone. We're going to stop this unit, yep, and hope that they break. They did.
Powder dry. Hellblaster.
So with the exact same units as we had last battle, we're actually losing quite a bit more men. Now, the Chevron formation can be very useful,
Handgunners.
but in my opinion, it's better used in conjunction with other formations. Now, we don't have cavalry, which we would usually use to tie down the flanks, which would make it a bit more effective, and then we could wrap around to the middle. But as you can see here, it's kind of a scramble. Handgunners did get some good kills in there, but this formation I'm going to show you now, you're going to think it's a little bit crazy. So right now I have a very basic formation. I'm using my handgunners almost as if they're archers, and they're right behind my front line. Now they have no line of sight. They'll be able to get some shots off before the line meets, as they do have a slight arc. However, once the lines are met, they won't be able to fire very well. Now our Hellblasters on the flanks, we're going to use them, and we are also going to try and make sure that we are aiming at units that have enemies behind them.
Ready for war!
This time I am going to focus. I won't focus down the board. But the idea of this one is I'm going to show you how to break their morale quickly. So Chevron formation is tough to move your units around. They have predefined firing lines. So when those don't pan out, your whole formation might fall apart, as happened in our last segment. So we are going to start adapting our lines to prevent us from being flanked, especially on those Hellblasts. Now they have much more melee, many more melee units than we have. But as you can see, we're not getting consistent firing from our handgunners right now. That's a line of sight issue. All of these units are obstructed. We are going to push out. What that's going to do is create a little bit of a firing window for our units to shoot through. Right there, they have a good, kind of a good aim at one of their flanks. But I'm going to take these units of handgunners that are doing absolutely nothing, and I'm going to move them to the right flank. You're not shooting, I'm going to move you to the left flank. And have Franz drop hold your ground to give us that melee defense boost to try and allow some of our units to get in position.
Go! Taking aim! Handgunners! At speed! We are
Now our handgunners are already focus firing the enemy lord.
ranged weapons ready! Moving now! Quickly! For Olsdorf! Handgunners! Yes!
We are going to finish him off. Now he's got a lot more health than Karl Franzia does, but we've already watched him die in the last fight. We don't need to see that again. He's wide open, so he's going to drop very fast. Now our handgunners over here are going to move before our lines break to try and overload this flank with missile damage. We are going to focus fire these units. That's going to drop them down faster. And also any units that the handgunners shoot at that are already dead, they're firing into a blob, so they're going to continue doing damage. You could take some friendly fire, but that's a risk we're willing to take. So down goes the enemy lord. And as you can see, we're already breaking one of their units over here. We're going to focus fire the unit right next to it, try and get them to break as well.
Spotter's the target!
Get a better flanking shot on them.
Ready for war! Quickly!
Here we're going to move into a very strangely shaped formation. Now, you might be wondering why, but it's actually that all of the units, regardless of their position, if they have a clear line of sight, they'll fire whether it's the back line or the front. As this line breaks, we're going to move our handgunners to better firing angles. That's a blob, so we should be able to get rear or flanking shots on all of those units.
Yes, sir! Quickly! Handgunners! Steady, man!
Carl Franzia is running away.
Handgunners!
He is not having a good time in these demonstrations.
I speak, you act! Now! Handgunners! Shoot them! All right, fire! Guns of
Now this whole right flank is pretty much decimated. And as you can see, that's the side we're doing the heaviest micro on.
Handgunners! All right!
We are going to continually try and keep these warriors out of the fight. Now this would allow us to move our halberdiers to engage more units and also attack from the rear. But right now we're really just trying to showcase the gun side of things. So now also on the left side they're starting to rout. That's where we moved another unit of handgunners over to focus fire on the rear.
For Heldenhammer! Moving now! Handgunners! By Galmaraz! For Heldenhammer!
So our Hellblasters are trying to shoot uphill and they're not getting a very good angle. So we're going to move one of our units, try and move it to flank these men right here in the middle if the battle lasts that long. A lot of people forget you can move your artillery. Yes, it stops them from firing for a little while, but at the same time, if you can get a good flanking shot with it, it can be absolutely devastating. But we are not going to really see that today. But at the same time, shooting into a good blob. Here, as those units rout, if this was a campaign battle, we'd now be able to take out a very hefty amount of expensive units. So right now the shields are on the right hand side, so that'll be protecting them a bit. But you can see as they start to move past my units, they're going to start dropping their health a lot faster. And that's from the extra armor piercing damage that they're going to get from shooting from the flank or behind. And you can just watch them drop. Alright, so surprisingly, we're actually better off using this formation than we were the Chevron formation. Granted, we did cause our units to rout with a little bit more health, but we also kept the battle a lot more in control by just being more adaptive. Now right here on the right, I moved my units of handgunners over to switch their firing line. And as you can see, the units from the back are still going to fire. Now, by keeping your units more in a square formation, or by keeping where you move them closer, you're going to be able to get them to start firing again quicker. So if you keep moving them from line to line and dragging, you might make them all move, and it's going to take a little bit more time, but a small square will make it a little bit more efficient. Here you can see the end screen. You can tell just by looking which handgunners were on the flanks. They're the kills in the hundreds. Alright, so bringing you into our fourth battle. This is a bit more of a mixed line. So Chaos is still going to come to us. And we are pretty entrenched with our artillery. We have a couple of chevrons in there. But we also have 2 units of handgunners ready to flank. Now, we also have 2 units of halberdiers on either end. So they're going to move to try and force the enemy to blob where we want them to. Again, the goal with guns in general, the more flanking shots you get, the better off you're going to be. There is one exception to that, which I'm going to show in the next segment, which is having a height advantage. But for the time being, let me show you this one. So again, our Hellblasters are trying to aim at units with units behind them. Now, some of these shots might even penetrate all the way to the third line, which they are. General rule of thumb, going against artillery, do not use deep formations. Of course, there are some exceptions to that rule. But typically, use your cavalry, get around the outside, try and make the artillery focus on units that are either cheaper or more mobile so they take less damage. So far, all of our handgunners are in shooting very quickly. So we do have this unit of handgunners in the middle too, which is outside of the Chevron formation, but I'm hoping that Karl Franz will blob up some enemies and get us some clear shots. We have our Hellblaster volley gun and our handgunners focusing down the enemy lord quickly.
State troops ready. Loaded, sir.
Alright, they seem to be meeting our lines right where we want them to, so we're going to move back this unit of handgunners to try and get to the flank. The right flank's a little bit more suspect, but it looks like they're trying to overrun it.
How to try? What do you bid? Shoot them! For Heldenhammer! Conditions acceptable! The Empire ensures! Handgunners!
Now, if you were using Outriders, they'd be able to get over there a lot quicker. I do highly recommend that unit.
We are Sigmar's heirs! Handgunners! Ranged weapons ready!
Alright, so the enemy lord is out. Not quite down yet.
Ulrich's fire! Fire Ulrich's wrath!
And we have the flanking shots we want on each flank. Now our Chevron formations are staying a lot tighter, which is going to allow us more consistent damage per second as well. And really, that's the name of the game with this. The more your guns are firing, the more kills they get, and the more damage they do.
For Heldenhammer! Handgunners! Whippers at the ready! Handgunners! We are Sigma!
Karl Franz is doing much better this fight. He might even make it through. He's excited.
Handgunners! Yes, General! For Old Dog! Ranging target! Sigma calls! Handgunners! Moving!
So now that we've pretty clearly won in the middle, we're going to pull some of our units through. So yes, we're blocking our line of sight for a moment, but they should be able to get in and then turn back around.
Ready for war! Handgunners! Take the ground! Hellblaster!
Now obviously one unit of handguns on the flank is a lot less effective than having 3, but at the same time, it's going to cause some morale hits. Will hopefully cause them to break, as the rest of our handgunners haven't really stopped firing in the Chevron formation. So we broke their middle faster, and now the morale hit will kick in, and that will do it for this battle. But as you can see, by doing a mix of the line formation and the Chevron formation, we're able to keep a lot more of our units in the fight. And again, looking at the kills, they're pretty well spread out this time, but all of our units have more health and more units left. Alright, for our final battle. So here we have units on elevation. Now, if your units are elevated, they can fire above the heads of the ones in front of them if they're at a different elevation. So our halberdiers are down on the bottom, our handguns in the middle are on a higher elevation than the front, and our handguns behind them are an even higher elevation than that. Now, it's not just about being higher up, it's about being on a different slope. So all of those units are on different slopes. The units on the ground level are flat. The units behind them are a little bit more elevated on a slight incline, and the units on the back line are on a steep incline. So what that should do is allow all of our units to fire consistently the entire time. Skip it forward a little bit as the lines are starting to meet and our handguns are going to start firing. So there is a ridge there that I wasn't anticipating. So our Hell Blasters will actually stop firing for a moment because I didn't realize that they were going to have their line of sight blocked. Just a reminder, terrain can work both for and against you with your ranged units, especially the direct line of sight ones. But coming from this elevation, we have consistent streams of bullets hailing down on them. So they will do more damage from elevation. As well as having better line of sight. So as they come in and blow up, anyone we don't see firing consistently, we'll move to focus fire.
Which target, General?
And our Chevron formation down here is also consistently firing. So again, we're going to focus down the enemy lord. Now, even just scanning over their units, you can see that they took a lot more damage before getting into the fight than they had previously.
Take position! By Sigmar's will!
Kyle Franzi is running away again. Not the biggest of deals. Their lord is also about to run. So we're going to keep focus firing down their lord. He's going to come here for the Hellstorm batteries. And we're not going to be able to target him that close, but our handgunners will. Yeah, he's out of there.
Sigmar guides us.
We tried to pull them through, they got a little bogged down. If we'd use a smaller, not as wide formation, we would have been able to do that easier. Again, we're going to try and make them line up in the same formation they're in now, so all they have to do is get there and turn around. And as you can see over here, the main battle line is starting to rout pretty much in unison. Now, there are no flanking units there, so that's just taking the extra damage from the units at a higher elevation.
Pick your targets!
Now, those stats are under the hood. I don't think they're readily available, at least I haven't seen them. As user RPD Matt pointed out to me on Reddit, a unit shooting from a higher elevation can do up to 1.3 times as much damage, and units shooting from a lower elevation can do as little as 70% of their base damage. While our main line wasn't on the hill, that's so that we could get that extra damage from two rows of handgunners. Alright, and then we're just going to bring our handgunners over here to help finish off this last blob. Looks like I do have a unit of handgunners out there, a little bit closer to the enemy than I would like. They all seem to be routing pretty well. Got one unit of Chaos Warriors that looks like they're making contact now. We're going to pull them out of there right after we reorganize over here. So sometimes if you select a unit when you're firing at them, your unit will chase that unit. Switching them to guard mode will help, but still, if you give them a manual command, it will override anything else you're doing. So that's why our artillery moved earlier in the battle. That's why these guys are right now trying to go toe-to-toe with Chaos Warriors, those brave sons of Sigmar. And that unit's going to rout, and this blob over here is routing. So that looks like it's going to do it. So thank you for tuning in. Again, this is Dan Plays. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, please click subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section. I'd be happy to answer.